All right, guys. So there's one more thing, or maybe a couple of things that I wanted to show you real quick on this before we move into part of the requirements that you're going to have for your final. So sometimes, depending on what software you're using, particularly Lumion and a few others, your alpha channel will have problems with, like, if you, like, we turned on bloom, for instance, in Lumion, and we had our sunburst and God rays coming down. But one of the ways that you can get around having to take that off is you can put in a light leak overlay to help communicate. Like right now, particularly, we sort of need one. We need a lens flare or a light leak to show the direction of where the sun's coming in. So a light leak, well, I'll just kind of pull it up on Google. So a lens flare is this. So that's a lens flare, okay? And we can simulate that using an overlay. The overlay needs to have a particular type of background in order for it to work. It can actually be rendered in to your render. Like there's a lens flare feature in Lumion and Maxwell and pretty much any of them, but I find that they're less predictable in the actual native software, and I like to just do them as overlays. So when you type in lens flare, it looks kind of like this, which is a little bit more valuable to us because it has the black background, and we can position it really anywhere we want. So depending on what kind of lens flare you want to operate with, I'm going to look at this one, which is rather intense. Come on, guys. So I'm going to copy this and drop it into Photoshop, and that new layer that I created, I'm just going to drop it in right there. So this thing, what you want to do with this is you want to line up the burst of the lens flare. That's the center point. You want to line that up approximately with the sun. And more importantly, you get lens flares in regions where the sun is partially cut off. A little bit less so when you have a full blast of the sun. And just because when you have a full blast of the sun, you tend to have way too much light in the image, and so the flare gets reduced. Or at least that's what it's been in my experience. But I'm going to flip that so that it gets put over on this side, and then just scale it up to a point where it fills the whole image, and it happens to be approximately in the location of where that sun is. Now, if I want to position it more precisely, I can reduce the opacity of the layer temporarily, and then I can move it so that the flare is wherever the actual light source is partially leaking from behind a surface, or almost fully in this case. But anyway, that's going to give us a more dramatic sort of sun flare that's in that region. So with that, I can bump this back up to 100 temporarily, and I'm going to, well, actually, I don't want to leave it at 100. What I want to do first is figure out which of my filter settings I can use to reduce the black background and make it invisible, and then I can change opacity to make it something that's a little bit more believable. So in order to do that, I think what we want is, and I always mess these up, but not multiply, screen. Screen kind of works. I don't think we want color dodge, that's too intense. Soft light darkens it up too much. That's too dark. That's not the right color rendering. I think we're going to be fine with screen. So if you go with screen, it looks kind of like this right now, and I mean that kind of looks like it's capturing somewhat of the effect, right? But it's a little too intense, so I'll just kind of bump this down to a point where it makes a little bit more sense. So I think maybe 75 is going to do the trick for me here. The other thing we can do is, like I said, this is on Tatooine, which is a warm environment, and you know the I don't know what chemical it would be in the air that makes it red, but we want this light not to be a cool light. It's pretty clearly going to be a warm light. So that is problematic because our source our source map right here is blue. So we can change this color. So I'm going to go to hue saturation, and I'm going to colorize this thing and make it red. So it just so happens that it defaults to red for the most part, but whatever color you want to change it to, you just slide it across the hue bar and you can get a different color. Okay, so I want it to be red, or probably more orangey than anything else, like a deep ochre red sort of thing. Probably kind of like that. That'll do. And then let me go back to the settings that I had before. So I'll use screen, and I had this at like 75%. So that feels a little bit more appropriate to me. What do you think? Right? Kind of cool. Yeah. I didn't really fix up this top left corner very well, so I'm going to jump into that and fix that up. Are you guys familiar with the stamp tool? Anybody not familiar with it? Probably somebody here, right? Yeah. All right. So the stamp tool is really cool. We need to go back to our source image. That's this one down here. And I'm going to select everything. Well, let me go into this. I'm going to select the shadow part. That's the important part that I'm going to work with. So the stamp tool, what it does when you turn that thing on, it's in the top left corner there, this guy right there, it's going to select an area to basically, like, this is going to be what I'm painting, but this is going to be where I'm painting it. Does that make sense? So you set the area that you're going to, well, sorry, let me jump over here. I'm going to pick a soft brush and bump up the size so that it's bigger than what I'm trying to paint over. But what I'm going to do is when you hold the Alt key, it creates a target. And then when I go to paint it, because yeah, it's going to paint behind the filter. So when you go to paint it, it's going to paint and trail wherever that is. So if I keep trailing off to the left, it'll eventually paint that all the way that I want it to go. Now, the thing you need to be aware of, though, is that if I put it up here where my gradient is a softer color, or a lighter color, I should say, and then I go try to paint down here, it's going to paint the wrong color. Also, if I leak off the side of the page, it's going to print that edge, or paint that edge, I should say, and then not paint anything after that. So you need to be careful about the direction of the grain that you're painting when you're painting over top of a gradient. Does that make sense? So simple fix for that, I think, for getting rid of that what do you call it, watermark. Okay, so that'll help you get to a better level of rendering, I think. What else did I say I was going to do for this one? I said light leaks and lens flares. Oh, light leaks. Light leaks are generally going to be used when you have your sun coming in from behind. Right now, I think our sun is very clearly coming in from, what I mean is not behind the building, like you can see where the sun is coming from, but from behind the camera. And a light leak just looks a little bit differently. Let's do light leak photography. So this is where you don't see the source of the light directly in the image, but there's an adjacent, like a particular, it's coming in at a particular angle that bends light in a way that's unfavorable for the photography, which can be used for dramatic effect or artistic effect as well. Again, I'm not the expert at this, but that's my understanding of it. Anyway, so light leaks are also available the same way that we have it here, light leak. And you can start grabbing a few like this and using the same method to overlay it and create some more dramatic effect however you want to do it that way. Okay? So let me see how we're doing on time before I jump into the next few things. All right, we're getting at about 10 minutes. So I'm going to close it off on this, and then I'm going to jump into some of the things that you're going to see on the final. You have any questions? No questions? Again? Wow. All right.